This is an open letter from Audley Harrison to Chris Eubank. Dear Chris, season's greetings. I'm wishing you and Team Eubanks a prosperous and successful new year. I wanted to touch base and reach out to you, as I will never forget you kindly coming to see me back in the day after I lost my unbeaten record to Danny Williams. You found me in my hotel and offered me advice from the heart. What you discussed was very helpful to my soul. So truly, Chris, I thank you for that. I hope my honest feedback helps you navigate your son's next steps. When we met back then in 2005, you questioned whether I had the hunger to turn things around in my career, as I was already financially stable and likely sleeping in silk bed sheets. I told you I was confident I could turn things around. In my rematch with Danny a year later, I turned up ready for redemption and almost decapitated him. Unfortunately, that opportunity to get redemption was tied into a long-term promotional contract with one of my nemesis, Frank Warren. Deep down I knew giving up control to him was my surrender. I had already promised myself early in my career I would never sign a deal with him or win a title for him. So it became a self-fulfilling prophecy in my career when I signed on the dotted line. Looking back, when I unfairly lost my BBC deal, I should have walked away from boxing into retirement, as there was nowhere else I could turn. Frank was back in control, and no television network would give me my own broadcasting deal. Not fulfilling my goals to be a multi-belt world champion does hurt a bit, I can't lie. But seeing Frank and Matchroom as the successors in my compulsion irritates me even more. Look at Matchroom now. They signed every Olympian with a look at Audrey. He tried to do everything himself and failed, so we must control everything, and each fighter has had to accept it. Matchroom, to be fair, under Eddie, have been much more willing to tie boxers into the television money when I turned professional, but they have used me to have even more control than Warren has. So Matchroom's pay-per-view model comes from my deal I negotiated with David Hay. I gave Eddie the contract to take on his flight home after preventing him from joining my meeting in Las Vegas with Adam Booth. And with the contract he learned the pay-per-view model that Haymaker Promotions was using on Sky. Similar to my landmark deal on BBC, you set the cat amongst the pigeons with your groundbreaking deal on ITV. When I signed my direct deal with BBC, Frank Warren could not believe or accept that I pulled it off. The player got played, and I was in the game big time. I heard you mention Barry Warren's comment to you, and it made me smile. As Kelly Frank Maloney spoke about in the Big Brother house in 2004, the two Franks had to do everything and anything to ensure I didn't make it. Please do not make the mistake I made of letting Matchroom Warren distract you with their BS. This is a different kind of focus you need, and thankfully you do not have to dedicate time to training and boxing as I did. Eventually they will crash your ship if you let them continually distract you. They sleep comfortable at night either way. It's in their DNA. Stay focused and don't waste your time going back at them. Promote your son, make your money. Don't give them more power by talking about them. My advice to you is do you, do you, do you. Chris Jr. has lots of talent, but strategy and planning will determine what you and young Eubanks achieve, as the obstacles will come thick and fast if you get distracted with a public debate and tussle. Like you are not concerned with the opinions of sheep, so those who fight against you are mostly that, but it still takes time to respond, and therefore it takes you away from your path. The institutions that govern England are skewed against black power, control, with institutional racism unfortunately embedded in the nucleus and foundation of British society. When I fought back against Frank, I had to contend with his whole army, press, board of control, his cronies, and then the BBC joined in against me, and the battle to keep control of my career and company was doomed. It's fair to say I came face to face with what I call the belly of the beast, eye of the devil, the door to my abyss. At that moment I knew without a shadow of a doubt that these people will stop at nothing to destroy me. Crippling my power has become their number one priority at all costs. They succeeded, but thankfully I had enough strength left to jump on the plane and start a new life abroad. If I stayed, I likely would have put a bullet in one of them, get locked up in a mental institution, or unravel broke and destitute, blaming the world for my failures. I say this to you with no shame. The bastards broke me down, but it was the best thing that happened to me as it woke me up from being like Tony Montana and Scarface. But I didn't want to go out like that. Guns blazing, double crossing everyone. I did business with him. I became what I was fighting against, and I was so glad it came tumbling down. From that adversity, Audley Harrison became a man, and so started my journey into adulthood at 34 years of age. Keep focused on the prize, Chris. Don't let them distract you, as they will stop at nothing to sink your ship. And we people with soul are not built like that. Well, those were the statements by Audley Harrison. Now I'd say this to Audley. The reason why Audley's career went the way that it went was basically because you could have blamed those guys. If those guys were making his fights, Frank Warren, they built him up and they were giving him easy fights. So when he did come up against someone who was hungry, it was usually peak for him. So, I think it was more on him. And yeah, most definitely, if he had someone that he could trust, because he should have been in that gym more, rather than, because it's a lot of strain on a boxer when you're actually promoting yourself, and then you've got to train for the fight as well. It's just too much to do. So, it's not the one. You can't really mix both of them. It's best to get someone that you can trust, a family member that you can trust to look over the finances. So I think that the Eubanks are in great hands with Chris Eubank Sr. They're in the best. They're in good, because he knows the boxing game. He has some idea. He knows what should be done and what shouldn't be done. So he's definitely right. Audley makes a lot of cases. Yeah, as a black man, you coming up in the British society, they don't want you to go for yourself. They don't want you to go for yourself. They want you to stay in that, you know, going to them. And you know, the thing with the British game and the boxing in Britain, if you can't sell tickets, you're basically not gonna go nowhere. There's a lot of good fighters out there, but they may not go to their potential. They may not reach their potential because they can't sell tickets. Because, you know, black folks ain't got money like that, where they can waste £30 for a ticket to go and watch a fucking boxing match. You could buy yourself a meal. You know, you could buy a dinner, you know, food for the week, you know, for a few days. With that, you know, that could get you for a couple of days. £30, man. £40, £50 to get in some of these events. These are little small events, you know, especially for amateur fights. You know what I mean? When I used to do boxing, you had white boys. They were selling, like, in my gym, they were selling like 40 tickets and shit. I couldn't sell one ticket because I didn't know enough black people, and I didn't feel right telling a brother wanted to come in there and watch it for free. We don't understand that you gotta pay for these tickets. If a lot of these fighters in Ireland, and some of these fighters ain't even good, but because they can sell tickets and these promoters know that they can sell tickets, he will give him an easy path through his career. That's what's happening in boxing. That's the politics of boxing. You know, Audley already self-made because he won the Olympics, so he already had a good little fan base from the gate. You know, but I think definitely it's like he wasn't training. I don't know. It's like he wasn't working hard enough. I'm gonna pull it down. Be fair to Audley and pull it down to the fact that he was doing a lot of you know, he had to promote himself and box at the same time, so that probably was the problem with him. Because something was the problem, because it's like, you know, he weren't really improving, like your Anthony Joshua's, you know. You had the suspect shit as well. I mean, it's crazy, really. But, you know, definitely right. I believe that the boxer should bring in more of the money than the promoter, you know. But everything that's happening, which he's definitely right, is a social problem with Britain. And that's a capitalist problem, realistically. Because how the fuck does a boxer earn more money than a goddamn teacher? That's why our children ain't getting educated, very educated in the UK. Let's face fucking facts. Sports stars are getting more money than fucking working people. A motherfucking got a man who's cleaning the fucking streets, yeah, is earning less than a motherfucking boxer. If you're a boxer, you're just a fucking entertainer. You're just entertainers. I mean, that's why I do this YouTube channel, because I see that there's people out there got boxing channels popping. You know, and they're just talking about boxing and reading the latest story and shit. It's crazy. Why can't I talk about something sensible? Right? Because I could easily come up here and talk about something sensible, and you know, it would be more potent, you know, about something social. But that's not what people want to hear. People don't want to hear the news. People want to hear about the sports and all the bullshit. So, you know, it's just the nature of the world that we live in. And you know, I don't think that information, I mean, Chris Eubank already knows the game. He's been hated from the gate, because he hasn't been playing ball. He hasn't been your good old token black man, you know. He's always tried to speak good Queen's English, you know, but he's never been that cooning guy. Now, some people might say that I'm wrong with this, but you know, Nigel Benn's a bigger coon than motherfucking Chris Eubank, and that's the fucking facts. Nigel Benn's been cooning for years, but you know, people love Nigel Benn, you know what I'm saying, over Eubank. At the end of the day, that's what sells. I think there's no, even though Audley's saying what he said, I don't think that there's a problem with Chris Eubank going back and forth. I think he'll sell more tickets and let it keep on going. Keep on putting the truth in on that guy, man. He needs to be exposed. A lot of these promoters need to be fucking exposed, because they're ruining the fucking sport of boxing. These guys. This is the reason why boxing ain't got no one. Why it's a dead sport. It's a dead sport. It's a dead sport. And that's because of these promoters. They've taken everything out of this sport, man. And that's why you got guys like, boxing fights ain't the way they used to be. People ain't gonna lay out their goddamn blood and they're not being paid right. You know what I mean? And that's why people hate you, Fred, because Fred don't try and engage in no war, because he wants to go out and have his face in one. He wants to come out with his face in one piece so he can party. You know what I mean? Why does boxing have to? Remember, why does boxing have to be brutal? And I love a knockout fight, but that's gonna have a knockout. I ain't gonna doubt that. But I do understand why some guys go out there to protect themselves. I don't necessarily call them a pussy and stuff like that. It's just certain guys are only willing to engage a certain amount. Because at the end of the day, what's the point in having all that money when you're talking, your speech is fucked up and you could get brain damage? You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, that's the nasty game of boxing. But like I said, I hope Frank Warren gets exposed. And this is all business, people. Boxing is just a goddamn business, nothing else, nothing more, nothing less. That's what we gotta understand. So it's not always what's good for business. It's not always what's good for business. It's about what makes the most money. Now they're looking to push out this fight between Soulja Boy and Chris Brown, and they'll probably sell more than a lot of fights that's gonna be out there, that's gonna be on the market this year, that's gonna go down this year. I think the only fight that could outsell the Chris Brown and Soulja Boy fight is Mayweather and McGregor. That's the only fight that can make more money than that. That's just the bottom line. That's just the truth, because it's what makes money. It's not what's good for business, because if it was about what was good for business, these fighters would get more money. And then that would, you have more people staying in the game, more people wanting to be in the business and help this sport, get back on its level. But, it's not about that. It's not about what's good for business. It's about the money at the end of the day. And, they got that fight on ITV with $12.95, and come on, man. I mean, it's a decent card, but it should have been on Sky Sports for free. But ITV selling it for $12.95. I mean, come on, man. But anyone who's, me personally, I like the Eubanks. I like Chris Eubank. Always like Chris Eubank. And like I say, man, if I had the money to throw away, I would I would pay for it, but I ain't. And if you wanna, I say people support if you can, but I ain't gonna support it. It's not good enough for me to pay for that. You know what I mean? I don't know the guy that Chris Eubanks Jr.'s fighting. I've never heard of him, so good luck to them. And I'm happy that they've got their own card, and there's some good fights on that. There you got Price against Christian Hammer. There's some good fights on the card, decent fights. Like I said, it would have been good if it was free on Sky or free on ITV. They should have just done the fight for free, because it ain't worth more than that, man. You know, they should have had a tester first. You know, let him win the world. If it was a world title, then they could have been demanding that. But first pay-per-view for some little idiot IBO belt, I mean, that ain't worth it, man. That definitely ain't worth it. I'ma tell the truth, man. And I know he's I like the Eubanks, but $12.95 on ITV, come on, man. And that's why Chris Eubank probably wanted Barry McGuigan to commentate, because it give it more of a big fight feel. But it's up to you anyway. Audley's right and exact, but I think what ruined his career and why he wasn't successful when he did go on himself, because he was taking too many L's. That's just the bottom line. See, he could have demanded whatever he wanted. And as a fighter, when you're at a certain level like Golovkin, you can't really play about with him. He gotta get what he's entitled to, because his record, he's got a flawless record. Same thing with Ashley Ward. It's just your record, man. If you keep on winning, then you can demand what the fuck you want. And Audley, he took too many losses, and that's the thing, he should have got someone that he can trust to deal with that promotion thing. He could have employed a CEO or something like that. But then again, a lot of athletes, they're not educated when it comes down to the business side of things in any matter. Because a lot of them, they've been making millions of dollars throughout their career, and then they leave their sport and then they ain't got no money. So I could say that, but a lot of these athletes ain't got no much business acumen. But Harris Audley don't have to say nothing to the Eubanks. Chris Eubank knows the game. He knows. He's never had a friendship with the press. He's never tried he's never tried cooning or nothing like that in boxing. He's always been a hated man, and when you see that, when you're always hated, all you can see is the snakes. That's all you'll be able to see. So he don't really need to give that advice to Chris Eubank, really, because Chris Eubank knows the fucking game, man. He knows the game. He knows that them guys ain't out. Warren ain't out for his well-being, man. That's just the bottom line. He knows Warren ain't out for his well-being. And that's it. And like I said, if his son takes a couple defeats and stuff like that, that's the problem. But I think that Chris Eubank, and it depends on who you're getting beat by as well. And Audley took a lot of the defeats against low-level guys that he should have been getting past. Like, you see what I'm saying? And that was his problem. He had an easy way, but then when you're letting these low-level guys beat you, right? Guys that shouldn't be giving you a fight, that's what ruined his career, man. And Danny Williams, he kind of revived he revived his career. He had a big career in the early thousands based upon them fights with Audley. You know what I mean? Sprott was in the game. Skelton was in the game. And we quietly had a little thing going on because of Audley. So, losing. So most definitely, I see what Audley's saying. But his like I said, his downfall was him taking L's, not someone trying to mess him up behind the scene. But he'll say whatever he wants to say, innit? And yes, this country is a racist country, the UK. But I mean, we've been dealing with it since we immigrated over here. It's just that some choose not to acknowledge it. That's just the truth of the matter. See, it's all good talking this black man shit when it's too late. When you're in the public eye, then you come with these talk. But he weren't saying this back in the day. Now you've got a different outlook on things. But like I said, I ain't gonna hold it against you, because I understand that a lot of these sports, these athletes, especially black athletes, ain't got no business acumen. Don't know nothing about business before they get in the game. All they know is that they're gonna make money and they're gonna spend it. They're not thinking about putting up any business. There's a whole load. I would say the majority of black athletes, they have no goddamn businesses. A majority of them don't have no black businesses. They don't have nothing after the sport. Their sport's finished. They don't have nothing. A lot of them have to sell their houses, everything. They're not even thinking about, can I afford this house after when I stop boxing? Just like Mike Tyson bought a $10 million house, he had to sell it later on in his life because he couldn't afford the upkeep of the goddamn house. You know, but if niggas were thinking right from the beginning, you could have just bought a nice little house that you know you could have paid the mortgage off with or paid a house that could have been managed financially by your